so Gideon, as I mentioned in part one, he was a man that didn't come from this rich family, didn't have much. He was actually a man when God, and you can go to, if you can locate the Holy Bible. Obviously, there's many apps where you can find it, but if you look at the Holy Bible, or just get the actual Bible itself. If you look at Judges chapter 7, and this story is over several chapters, but I'm just going to focus on chapter 7. But just to give you a little background, so Gideon was this kind of humble, puny looking fellow, and it was during a time where Israel was in bondage, and they were slaves to another country, another group of people who had them under submission, and primarily because Israel's behavior, rebellion against God punished them. And when God had reached out to Gideon, he was actually hiding, and he was doing his work in secret because he didn't want his masters to see what he was actually doing in secret, because he was working on, it was what they call kind of like a wine press, but he was doing his work privately. So at any rate, that was kind of his MO. He would do things in secret and sort of away, and that can be looked at as cowardly, but I guess you would have to understand the nature and the time and history that this all took place. So at any rate, fast forward a little bit, God called Gideon to fight against thousands of soldiers, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. And so what Gideon did is he got about 32,000 men together to go fight these hundreds of thousands of guys. So right from the beginning, he was incredibly outnumbered. But the thing is that when Gideon started to to wage war, that he started with 32,000 people, and what God had instructed him to do, he said, "Well, Gideon, you got these 32,000 people, and that's too many people for me to use to take over these to win this war against these hundreds of thousands of people." Because I don't want, this is what God was saying to Gideon, because I don't want any man, when you win this war, I don't want anyone to say, well, we won because we had 32,000 people. So God asked Gideon to pose a question. And he asked, well, how many of you are afraid out of this 32,000 people? So just kind of imagine him up in front of all these people. And, let's if we go modern times, and, this would be something where we have this big microphone and speakers, and you got these 32,000 people. And he got up and he said, hey, how many of you are afraid? Who's really scared about this? And who just are just nervous about this whole idea of fighting against these hundreds of thousands of soldiers with only 32,000 people? And if you look at Judges, it says that 22,000 of the 32,000 went home. Because God said, look, all the ones that are afraid, let them leave. And so those 22,000, they were all afraid, and they left, and they went home. So right there, he lost 2/3 of his army. Okay, so he's already short by hundreds of thousands of soldiers in comparison to the folks that they had to fight against. So now 2/3 of those people left because they were afraid, because they were nervous, they were not sure about this. And maybe it sounded good in the beginning, that's great. We need to fight and we need to take these people out. We need to fight for our freedom. But the more we think about it, good luck. And so those 22,000 people left. So after that happened and he got down to 10,000 plus people, the next thing God said to him, he said, Gideon, you have these, now you have 10,000 plus left, and that's still too many people for me to use, because I don't want anyone to say that because we had 10,000 people, we were able to take out the enemy. Now, look at the math in all of this. So here's God has already taken 2/3, so let's just say for giggles, 75% of his army, he's already taken them away, and they started off short. So, you would think, well, still, if we beat them with 32,000 people and they had hundreds of thousands, that's incredible. But God said, no, still too many, so at 10,000. So what God said was, okay, well, we're going to test the 10,000. So, we want these folks to get on these horses and then take them to the river. and we want everyone to get water. And those that get off, that dismount their horses and drink water, some will do that, and then some will, just kind of grab the water with their hand and put it in their mouth as they're going, in their mouths as they're going. And so it turns out that the ones who never dismounted their horses equaled only 300. And so God said, keep the 300, okay, and let the other 9,000+ go. So now he's down to 1% of the people he started with. And look at the math of this. And this something's not jiving here. So you took a wimpy guy who was afraid, who was kind of a coward, did everything in secret, no pedigree, no money, no history of being a warrior or a great soldier. And he finally gets up 32,000 people who are all excited about their freedom and fighting against the enemy. And by the way, they really didn't have any weapons. And they were all excited. And at the initial meeting and the announcement, and everyone signed up and we're ready to go. Damn the torpedoes. Let's go gung-ho. Let's make this happen. Who can stop us? And then when they, when all the emotions settled and they thought about it a little bit, they said, no, this isn't for me, and they went back home. And then you had 10,000 still who said, hey, you know what? That's okay. Well, I'm not like those cowards. They can go home, but we got this. But the difference is that those other 9,000+ who dismounted their horses, they were interested in convenience, right? They wanted to get off the horse and get the water and make sure, so they were interested in, we'll do it, but we want to maintain some of our comforts. And God said, no, I don't want them either. I want the ones that, man, listen, we don't have time to slow down. We're going to move on these horses. We're going to drink as we go. Listen, we can deal without the comfort of some of the things that we're used to having because we got a war to fight. And so God identified 1%. Now you tell me, isn't that sort of how things are for us? That you have all these people excited and ready to go, ready to get it done. But then when they think about it, they kind of back out. And then you still have a number left that are there, but they're not willing to go all the way and make the real sacrifice. So then they go home. And then you're left with this small group. And see, that's what God was trying to show Gideon, trying to show us, that it isn't about the volume. It isn't about how many people are with you or how many people are behind you or endorsing what you do. What it comes down to is, are you doing God's will? Are you committed to doing what God called you to do? Are you committed to trust Him, to take this risk? Do you have enough faith to take this risk? Do you understand that if you're successful at this, that your faith will grow? So what we're going to do in the third and final part of this message, we're going to wrap it all up. We're going to bring it home.